So I'm really into science fiction, you know, and I liken what happens to a starship flying through space when it gets attacked by hostile aliens to what happens to a human being when they suffer from stress. So this is just an easy way for me to visualize actually what we experience. So do you like science fiction at all?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully this will make sense to you. If you did have a spaceship, you know, let's say Starship Enterprise from Star Trek, it's flying through space and it gets attacked by some hostile aliens. And it's got, say, Captain Kirk at the helm. He's not the kind of bloke that's going to go running away from this fight. He's going to stay and fight. So if he's going to be doing battle with his spaceship, what are the two systems on his spaceship that are most essential for him to survive that battle?
The two systems on the spaceship.
So there are two things that he's going to need to get him through that battle.
Weapons.
Weapons, perfect, yeah.
And protection.
Yeah, shields. So he needs his weapons and his shields. And literally, for a short period of time, he could afford to shut everything else down. He could afford to take energy away from the engines and use that for shields and weapons. He could, shut the holodeck and the mess hall and life support even on some of the decks. All these things, they're essential, but for short periods of time they can be shut down, and that energy can be used to get him through that battle. And then when he's out of the battle situation, then they could return to functioning normally. Now, essentially, that's exactly what happens to the body. When you experience stress, there are certain systems that are non-essential for immediate survival that we can essentially just shut down for a short period of time. So what would you think? Let me ask you, what do you think are systems on your body for a short period of time that you could shut down?
I don't know.
What about digestion? Do you think you need to digest food if you're being attacked by, let's say, you are being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger? Do you think that your ability to digest food efficiently is going to be imperative for you to?
No.
Okay, no. So you could actually afford to shut that down for a very short period of time. Now the interesting thing is that when we're experiencing stress, from what we were talking about earlier, how long do you think the body is expecting that situation to last? If you are being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, how long is that situation going to last at most?
Not long at all.
Seconds to minutes, right? So that the body's expecting to be in this state by 10 minutes at the most.
Yeah.
And it's shutting these things down for a very short period of time, expecting you to get out of that situation, relax, and they start working again.
Yeah.
When you stay in that state for extended periods of time, that's when you start to have problems. If your digestive system has been shut down for extended periods of time, it can cause digestive issues like tummy upsets, irritable bowel syndrome, like constipation, diarrhea. Because essentially, these are parts of the body, these are systems that are just not functioning efficiently, which leads to further issues. Now, if you're suffering from irritable bowel syndrome, then we go off and take medication to try and address that. But actually, just by relaxing, you'll find that everything starts to return to normal. And the other interesting thing is, if your digestive system has become impeded when you're stressed, when you are eating food, your body is not digesting that. It's not absorbing the nutrients from that food. It's literally just storing it as fat. So people that suffer from high levels of stress are more likely to gain weight as well, because it's like their body's not processing the food, it's literally just being stored as fat. So one of the other things to bear in mind is that literally by relaxing, everything starts to work efficiently, and your ability to digest food improves massively. So what else? What other systems do you think you could shut down in the body?
Sleeping? Getting sleep?
Yeah. It's very difficult to fall asleep. If you're being attacked by a wild animal, going to sleep is the last thing on your mind. You're not going to lie down on the floor as a saber-toothed tiger starts attacking you and have a kip, are you? So this is the interesting thing. Now, because a lot of us, that we're staying stressed for extended periods of time, and we're getting used to being stressed as part of our normal everyday existence, that what we find is when we get to bed at night, there's no wild animal attacking us, there's nothing, threatening our lives, yet we're in a state where it's actually impossible to sleep. A lot of people suffer from what I call the Roadrunner effect. Do you remember Roadrunner? The cartoon Roadrunner? Me running around the desert. What happens to Roadrunner when he stops running? Do you recall?
No, I can't remember.
Okay. So he's running around the desert really, really fast, and then Wile E. Coyote's there to trap, and his feet come to a stop, but because he's going so fast, his body's bouncing backwards and forwards like this. And it takes a few minutes for him to come to a dead stop. Now this I find fascinating, because this is what find a lot of people experience on a day-to-day basis, that they're rushing through life. They get up in the morning, they're rushing to work, maybe they've got families and children to get to school, and they're rushing around, they get to work, and even if they're not physically rushing around, they're having to think about lots of things, so their brain is rushing and working very, very hard, and then they get home, and then they've got to rush around, and maybe they go to do some exercise, or they go to the pub, or they've got children to look after, and they've got to make dinner, and then they've maybe got some emails to check, and they're just brains constantly rushing, and they sit down in front of the television, their body stops, but their brain's still working really hard as they're watching the news, they're watching the film, they're reading newspaper, more information, and checking their BlackBerry or their iPhone, and more information, and they get into bed, the body comes to a stop. What's the mind still doing? Roadrunner effect. And this is becoming an increasingly common experience. So when that is occurring, it's impossible for you to fall asleep, or even if you are able to fall asleep, what you're going to find is your quality of sleep is going to be massively diminished. So you wake up in the morning, you've had 8 hours in bed, and you wake up feeling exhausted. You feel like you've not even slept at all. Or you wake up after a few hours and you just don't feel rested after that night's sleep. On the flip side, some people have 5 hours in bed and wake up feeling fantastic. And it's not so much how much time you have asleep, but it's the depth and the quality of that sleep that will determine how good you feel in the morning. So this is, again, something that I feel is very, very important, is that we understand that, that if we are in a state where, even though our bodies have come to a stop, our mind is still doing this, it's going to be very difficult to sleep well. What could Roadrunner do to prevent that experience?
Not run everywhere so quickly.
Yeah, or even if he is running quickly isn't so much the problem, because he could be running really quickly. It's the fact that he comes to a dead stop that causes this. What could he do to prevent that?
Start walking, slow down.
Exactly, slow down. So rather than rushing really fast and coming to a dead stop, as he's getting to the point where he wants to stop, he actually begins to slow down. So when his feet stop, so does his body. We can take a great lesson from Roadrunner, because we can do the same. Rather than rushing, and constantly having our mind stimulated and lots of things going on, lots of information being pumped in, when you get to a certain point where you're getting ready to sleep, you take the time to slow down. Now that could be having a warm bath, I don't know, reading something that's not overstimulating, or a cup of cocoa, whatever. We know that this works because lots of adults do this with their children. They'll give their children a warm bath, or they'll read their children a story, or give them a cup of cocoa. We know it works for the children, yet we don't look after ourselves in the same way, which is insane. I'm sure you've been on a plane before, haven't you, Imogen? Yeah. When you're on a plane and they're going through the safety instruction program before the plane takes off, what do they say you should do before you put the oxygen mask on anybody else?
Put it on yourself.
Exactly. Because what happens if you don't put it on yourself?
Well, you would lose oxygen.
Yeah, you'd suffocate, right?
Yeah.
You can't help anyone else if you're suffocating yourself.
Yeah.
Now, most of us spend a lot of our time busily trying to help other people and care for other people, yet we don't look after the most important person in our life, ourselves. And it's our ability to look after ourselves, and the better we look after ourselves, the better position we are in to help other people. And that's why, if you know that this works, and especially for those people that do this with their children, make sure you look after yourself in the same way, because then you have an increased ability and more energy to support and care for your children, your families, and everybody else around you. So, prevent that Roadrunner experience. Ensure that you take the time to wind down in preparation for sleep. So when you do get into bed, you'll fall asleep much more easily, and the depth and the quality of your sleep will be massively improved. Yeah? So what else? What other systems in the body do you think you could shut down temporarily and divert that energy to the butler hand? What about higher brain function? What kind of decisions do you need to make if you're stressed, if you're under attack?
Whether to